Today, we look at a boxer who is arguably the biggest puncher the sport has seen. How good was the Mighty Atom, Jimmy Wilde? William James Wilde was born on May 15, 1892, in Quakers Yard, Merthyr Tydfil, Wales. Wilde stood 5 feet 2.5 with a 66-inch reach. He had an aggregate weight of 100 pounds for his career. He is most associated with boxing's flyweight division, which ranges from 108 to 112 pounds. Wilde's career spanned from 1911 to 1923. He had 131 wins, 3 losses, and 2 draws. 99 of his wins were by knockout. He also had 13 no-decision bouts. His win percentage was 87, and his knockout percentage was 66. Wilde was a highly skilled boxer-puncher who could knock out opponents with both fists, even when routinely outweighed. While Wilde barely ever weighed more than 107 pounds, his length and force generated allowed him to rack up 99 knockouts throughout his career. Additionally, he had the wits and skill to be a great defensive fighter in addition to his offensive prowess. Wilde is also alleged to have fought nearly 600 to 700 fights in addition to those documented on record, though the exact number can't be fully substantiated. Wilde defeated Kid Morris in July of 1912 in a fight billed as the British 6 stone 10 pounds, or 94-pound title match, and defeated Jim Ransford in November of the same year for what was billed the Flyweight Championship of England. Wilde's first notable fight took place on January 1, 1913, when in the 18th round, he knocked out Billy Young Padden in what was considered the British 7 stone, or 98-pound championship in Glasgow, Scotland. After again knocking out Padden in the 3rd round of their January 1914 fight, Wilde would face an early rival, Alf Mansfield, on April 27. Mansfield was an experienced fighter, but Wilde won a 20-round decision over the game fighter in Leeds. The two men would have a return bout in London on September 28, with Wilde again winning as the bout was stopped in the 10th round. On November 11, 1914, Wilde would face Joe Simons in a British flyweight title eliminator. Wilde would gain a 15-round points victory over Simons, setting him up for a shot at the European flyweight title. After defeating Sid Smith in December of 1914, Wilde would be matched against Tansy Lee in his next fight on January 15, 1915. The EBU European Flyweight, International Boxing Union World, and National Sporting Club British Flyweight titles were on the line. Lee had a nearly 15-pound weight advantage over Wilde, who weighed in fully dressed. The two men battled ferociously through the early portion of the fight. Lee started to take over and land more down the stretch before stopping Wilde in the 17th round when Wilde's corner threw in the towel to save their fighter from further damage. This was the first loss of Wilde's career as he came into the fight with a record of 94-0, with 1 draw. One of the longest unbeaten streaks in the history of the sport. The loss didn't slow Wilde down a bit as he stepped back in the ring 2 months later to continue his winning ways. Wilde gained an 8-round TKO victory over Sid Smith in their return bout on December 20, 1915, before stepping in with Joe Simons in their Valentine's Day 1916 rematch. This time, Simons would not see the final bell as the bout was stopped in the 12th of 20 rounds, handing Wilde the victory. Wilde also picked up the International Boxing Union World and British National Sporting Club Flyweight titles with the win. Wilde knocked out Sid Smith in their 3rd and final match on March 27, 1916, bringing a close to the rivalry. He followed that fight with an April 24 victory over Johnny Rossner to win the first International World Flyweight Championship. Wilde would then get an opportunity to avenge the only loss of his career to that point when he locked up with Tansy Lee for a June 26, 1916 rematch. Much like the first fight, the two had some nip-and-tuck moments through the early portion. However, Wilde would show why he's one of the greatest punchers in history as he flattened Lee in the 11th round to pick up the knockout victory. This led to Wilde's legacy-defining moment when on December 18, 1916, Wilde met young Zulu Kid in the first-ever World Flyweight title match. Wilde would show his greatness as he battered Zulu Kid, picking up an 11th round victory as his offensive attack forced Kid's corner to throw in the towel. With the win, Wilde became the first recognized world flyweight champion. Wilde also twice defeated future world featherweight champion Tommy Noble in 1916. After stopping at 20 pounds heavier Joe Kahn on August 31, 1918, Wilde faced off against Hall of Fame American bantamweight Joe Lynch on March 31, 1919. Lynch was known as an aggressive fighter with an iron chin. The big punching Wilde would hit Lynch with everything but the kitchen sink as he gained a 15-round points victory over the game challenger. Nearly 5 years removed from their last matchup, Wilde would close the chapter on his rivalry with Alf Mansfield as he picked up a 13th round stoppage on May 16, 1919. On July 17, 1919, Wilde would step in with another Hall of Fame bantamweight when he met Memphis Pal Moore. The fight was an action-packed affair as the two men met fire with fire, each gaining the edge in varying stages of the fight. In the latter part of the 20-round contest, Moore hurt Wilde, but Wilde battled back to keep things tight on the scorecard. When the action ceased, Wilde picked up a razor-thin decision victory. Much like his previous fights, Wilde was outweighed, this time by 8 pounds. In his next fight on December 6 of 1921, Wilde would lose a 10-round newspaper decision to Little Jackie Sharkey, an Italian-born fighter residing in America. The fight took place in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Wilde's first fight outside the UK. Some sources don't recognize the newspaper decision loss as an official loss. In 1920, Wilde would pick up a decision win over Frankie Mason on March 12, before meeting young Zulu Kid in a return bout in Canada, picking up a 10-round decision. He would defeat battling Al Murray via 8th round TKO on April 21, before knocking him out in the second round in their May 13 rematch. Wilde would defend his world flyweight title with a 10-round points victory over Patsy Wallace in Toronto on May 24, to close out 1920. Wilde would return to the UK for his next contest when he lost via 17th round TKO in a Kensington battle against Hall of Fame bantamweight Pete "Kid" Herman on January 13, 1921. Herman was coming off of a loss to Joe Lynch, whom Wilde had defeated. Outweighed by 9.5 pounds, Wilde fought with great heart, but the referee stopped the bout to prevent him from taking further punishment. Wilde would not fight again until June 18, 1923, when he put his world flyweight title on the line against another flyweight Hall of Famer from the Philippines, Pancho Villa. The fight went down at the Polo Grounds in New York. It would be an action-packed fight, though the bulk of said action came from Villa. While Wilde looked good in the first round, he was dropped with a vicious right hand right at the bell to end the second. Wilde never fully recovered and took a ton of damage over the next several rounds before being knocked out cold with a left-to-right hook combination in the 7th. This would be the final fight of Wilde's fantastic career. Wilde faced 4 Hall of Famers. His most notable fights were against Joe Simons, Tansy Lee, Sid Smith, Hall of Famer Joe Lynch, Hall of Famer Memphis Pal Moore, Hall of Famer Pete Herman, Hall of Famer Pancho Villa. Jimmy Wilde died on March 10, 1969, at 76. The Mighty Atom spent the bulk of his career as an undersized flyweight but made up for what he lacked in weight with punching power. He ushered in a generation of great fighters to come from Wales and the UK in general. He is without a doubt one of boxing's biggest pound-for-pound punchers. He had the heart of a lion and never showed an ounce of fear. Wilde was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 1990.